So now that we're inching towards Paragon 80, a lot of people are starting to purely focus on set items and actually getting the correct set pieces. Now, for those of you that don't know, set items are going to be on your left-hand side here. They're going to unlock unique effects based on what set and how many pieces you have, either 2, 4, or 6. And due to the fact that we are not going to get many upgrades in terms of gear until much later on, now we can start settling down a little bit and looking for some of those set items. So let's talk about what sets are the greatest on which class. Let's jump into it. So let's talk set items and how good they are on specific classes. Now keep in mind that because we are only able to farm Hell 2 and can't equip the gear from Hell 3, Hell 4, or Hell 5, or continues on, then we can only equip 4 set pieces because these rings are only accessible from Hell 4. If you're ever curious what set drops from what dungeon, then you can go ahead and scroll down here on the set items and click this little box right here, and you'll get access to all of the set pieces and where they are located. Now, with all that said, we're going to talk about the set properties and whether or not 2-piece, 4-piece, or 6-piece is what you're going to be looking for based on each class. So we're going to start off with Issatar, and I'm going to go through each of the classes for each set and talk about some of the advantages for each class. So Issatar here is mainly focused as a PvE damage dealing quick-paced set. This is going to give you movement speed every single time we kill an enemy, 30% movement speed for 2 seconds. The 4-piece set effect is going to give us increased damage by 2.5% for every 5% increase in your movement speed, up to 25%. Now, the 6-piece set effect is quite solid, but I'm going to ignore that for now and do an updated video in a couple of months when we actually get access to these set items when we have more information. Now, we're going to talk about these sets in alphabetical order, so we're going to go Barbarian first. Now, Barbarian is going to get some use out of this set. I could see this set being a 2 or 4-piece set for the Barbarian, especially considering they constantly run Sprint. Sprint's just going to give you a massive bonus in damage because of the 4-piece set. So if you decide to run the 4-piece set, this is going to be an excellent, excellent choice. I would definitely rate this based on an S, A, B, C, D, and F tier. I'm going to go ahead and put Issatar at an A tier for the Barbarian. Not only that, but the 2-piece set is going to be excellent for the Barbarian as well, allowing you to go ahead and whirlwind through enemies while gaining a little bit of movement speed. It'll be amazing. Next class is going to be the Crusader, and the Crusader here, this is one of those sets where you get a ton of value for the Crusader. I would put this set at a S tier for the Crusader. This set is going to be amazing, not only because we're going to get extra damage or extra movement speed when we kill an enemy, but mainly because we're on our horse so often and we have so many things that modify or can be used before we get on our horse, like Banner, like Consecration, like the Fiery Path from the horse, and all that good stuff. So you are going to get massive damage increase. Keep in mind that you get 60% movement speed from the horse. You're going to have 15% damage increase as soon as you hop on your horse, basically for the entire horse duration. This is an excellent 4 and 2-piece set. There is another set that I want to talk about, so we're going to keep that at that for the Crusader. Next one up is going to be the Demon Hunter. Now, the Demon Hunter doesn't have a crazy amount of ways or consistency in terms of increasing their movement speed at mass amounts, but that doesn't mean the 4-piece set is incredibly bad. I would put the Issatar set 4-piece at an B tier, and I would put the 2-piece at an A tier. I would say that the 2-piece is actually quite good, considering that you're going to be moving and shooting, and so you're going to be able to get the movement speed and continue on to the next pack. I really enjoy the 2-piece set of Issatar on the Demon Hunter. Next up is going to be the Monk, and for the Monk here, I think that this set isn't all that great overall. However, in specific builds, it can work really well. Now, you don't really need the movement speed when going from pack to pack in PvE content for the Monk because you have the teleport on basic, which allows you to move from pack to pack. So I'm not a huge fan of the 2-piece set. However, the 4-piece set can get minor use out of it because of the Shield of Zen movement speed increase that you can apply and get a little bit of movement speed there and give you a little bit of extra damage based on all your other abilities. That being said, I would put Issatar at a C tier for the Monk. because I don't believe you can get insanely high value from this set for that class. Nonetheless, you could still get consistent, solid value, but much, much less than the other classes, as well as just some other sets. Next up is going to be the Necromancer, and this one, honestly, is not the Necromancer set at all. There's going to be very little ways you can increase your movement speed at a 4-piece, and yes, you're going to get the extra movement speed when you defeat an enemy, but it's not going to be that great, considering that you're already a ranged class, and you have to stop and hit anyways, so you're going to be using a lot of time to go ahead and do that. So you may be able to keep this movement speed up quite a bit when you're open world farming, but overall, I would say that this set is probably at a D tier for the Necromancer, but you could still get value out of it. It's just going to be low value, definitely not worth going out and farming, in my opinion. Next up is going to be the Wizard, and the Wizard is a little interesting because you have a few abilities that can go ahead and increase your movement speed with your Nova skill, but overall, you're probably not going to be running that all the time, and you're going to have to stop and basic when you go ahead and defeat enemy. Oftentimes, you're using channeling effects as well, which causes you to stand in place. So I would say that the 2-piece set is going to put probably at a C tier. You could get value out of this, but because of how many stationary abilities you have, you don't really get full value from this. When you're talking about a range class or a class that can't hit and move at the same time, you're going to get lower value from this than, for example, like the Crusader that could use it when you're running on your horse, or the Barbarian that can spin and take value out of this, or the Demon Hunter that can move and shoot. The stationary classes have a hard time getting use out of the 2-piece set, but you could still get value if you spam your abilities and get some movement speed that way. The damage increase from your movement speed is solid with the Nova, but you have to take that legendary item, and then it's not amazing. So I would say that this is probably at a C tier for the Wizard. You could get use out of this, but definitely would rather go with a few other sets, specifically one other one that I'm going to mention later on. So that is the Issatar set. So the next set is going to be the Grace of the Flagellent set, and I just wanted to mention this really quickly before we continue on the video, because I know I'm going to get some comments about it. But I know some of you are going to say, well, you get the rings from the Warband chest, and that is true, but you can't get a 6-piece set from the Warband chest, because you can't borrow 2 pieces of items from that. So you're not going to be able to get the full 6-piece, unless there's some other way that I don't know about. And I'm sure some of you will let me know in the comments down below if I am missing something. But other than that, the Grace set here is a very, very good as a PvE set, and just in general for characters that are using continual damage, channel damage, and things like that. So what does it do? Well, all continual damage, channel damage, and ground damage is increased by 15%. And then the 4-piece set is each time you damage an individual 5 times, you're going to do an additional 3k damage to that enemy. This is a lot of damage, and a lot of increased damage here from the Grace of the Flagellent 2-piece set. So we're going to start off again in alphabetical order. First off is Barbarian. Now, I think this set is an absolute amazing set for the Barbarian. You're going to be using the Whirlwind so often that this is basically a must-have in any PvE scenario or PvP scenario, unless you're talking about specific like boss fights where you may not be running Whirlwind, I don't know, like in Shadow War, for example. But overall, this set's going to be amazing, and I would put this in an S tier for the Barbarian. Now, the 2-piece set is absolutely amazing, and the 4-piece set, I think, is a very, very underrated set, specifically because there's no cap to this. So let's say you were running the Barbarian, and you were going to go ahead and deal the Whirlwind. Remember, you're going to hit all of the enemies at least 5 times when you're going and spinning away. So you're going to do an extra 3k every single 5 times you hit them, which is a lot of extra damage. I think the 4-piece set is also worth slotting in on the Barbarian as an S tier as well. Absolutely amazing set for the Barbarian. Next up is the Crusader. The Crusader also, I believe, is absolutely amazing with this set. Now, you're not going to get the 4-piece set proc all the time because you're not going to be sitting there hitting the enemies. Usually, the Crusader is going to be moving around, moving with the banner, or placing something and moving away. That being said, you do have the Spinning Shield, Consecration, and the Fiery Horse. So you're going to get a lot of value from this. I think that the 2-piece and the 4-piece set is going to be an S tier for the Crusader as well. However, you're competing with the Issatar, so this is where it gets a little complicated. I don't know if this set or the Issatar set is going to be better in terms of math. You'd have to run a lot of the numbers, and it's going to be different in every scenario because there are going to be some scenarios where you can sit there and damage enemies a bunch of times, and there are some scenarios where you can't. I would say that you're going to get more consistent value out of the Issatar set, and the 2-piece of the Gray set more so than you will get out of the 4-piece of the gray set, simply because the ground damage with Consecration and the Fiery Horse, as well as the channel damage, you happen to be running the laser build, which is something that I kind of showcased last time in a previous video, then you could get some value out of that. I would say stick to the 2-piece set. I really like the 2-piece set on the Crusader. Next up is the Demon Hunter, and I would say that the Demon Hunter probably doesn't get nearly as much value out of this set than the other 2 classes that I've already mentioned. You're not going to have a whole lot of channel damage or continual damage or ground damage. Now, you do have a little bit of ways to proc this, but overall, not super great. I do think the 4-piece set is quite solid, but the problem is when you get a 4-piece set, you're also sacrificing the potential for another 4-piece set with also a good 2-piece bonus, or just double 2-piece. So I would say that this set overall is probably in a C tier for me in the Demon Hunters category. Next up is the Monk. And the Monk, I would put this one at probably a C tier as well. I just don't think that you're going to have a ton of ground damage, channel damage, or continual damage with the Monk at 2-piece. Again, the 4-piece set still has a little bit of value here for the Monk, but I would say that you're not going to get a whole lot of value out of this one, simply due to the fact that you don't have a lot of skills to proc it that you're oftentimes running. You usually run the Mystic Allies, which are copying like your 7-sided strike, your Bell, Wave of Light, things like that, or your Mystic Dash, and those don't really count too much in terms of the bonus damage that you're getting. Next up is going to be the Necromancer, and the Necromancer actually has a few ways to proc this. Very common, actually. A lot of the times you have continual damage, or maybe your ground damage in certain scenarios, or you're damaging an individual 5 times. This also procs from your summons. So I think that this set is actually at an A tier for the Necromancer. I could see it being an S tier for the Necromancer as well. So very, very solid set here. And I think that you should really pay attention to this 4-piece set, because you're getting a lot of procs off of it from all your summons hitting over and over and over again very consistently. Next up is going to be the Wizard, and I believe that this set is an S tier for the Wizard. You're going to have so many ground damage skills, so many channel damage skills, and so many damaging skills that can proc this 15% bonus damage. You're also going to be able to proc the additional damage every 5 times you hit an enemy. So I think both the 2 and 4-piece set are an S tier. I could see you running a 2-piece gray set and then mixing and matching it with another 2-piece set, or I could just see you running straight up with a 4-piece grace set on the Wizard. It's going to be absolutely amazing, especially with skills like Meteor, skills that are going to be channeling skills. I believe like the Arcane Torrent, things like that are just going to be absolutely amazing with the Grace set. Next up is going to be a very unique set in the Untouchable Mountebank. So I would say that this is kind of like a overall class. It's kind of hard to break it up into specific classes. I think that this is one of the only sets where I could say that every class has a very similar use to me for this set. And that is going to be, one, you could use it in specific, very difficult raid sets, or in my opinion, I think this is a very excellent PvP set due to the fact that you're going to get a 20% shield sometimes, which is absolutely massive. Sometimes it's going to be 33% if you happen to get the 4-piece set, which is very, very important. Now, unfortunately, we can't get the 6-piece set. So if you wanted to do that, then you couldn't because you can't get the double ring. But that means that all classes have equal value in this set because you're not even going to get the extra damage to all nearby enemies. I guess you could say that the classes with higher base HP is going to give you more value in terms of the shield amount. But I think that literally every set, specifically for PvP and some very difficult raid scenarios or Shadow War, things like that, you're going to get a lot of value out of this set for the shield, and that's it. But overall, I don't think there's any real big difference between any of the classes. I guess if you're a melee class, you may get more procs out of this because you're going to be in the fight more often. But it has a 9-second cooldown, and I believe every person's going to get hit kind of every 9 seconds, or at least a few times every 9 seconds to get that chance to proc that 20% of the shield. So I think that this set is interesting. I would put it as perhaps a B or C tier in every class, depending on what build you're running for PvP. I don't think it's really a PvE set. I don't think you need the shields in a lot of PvE content. But overall, it's going to be a solid set. The Rags of Shaal'baas. And this one is your go-to Demon Hunter set. But we're going to be going through all of it. And we have the first set effect, which is the 2-piece set effect. It's going to be the primary attack damage increased by 15%. This is going to be an excellent, excellent boost to anyone that's using primary attacks, which is pretty much every single person in the game, but specifically to the Demon Hunters. And then we have the 4-piece set effect, which is the your primary attacks rather gradually increase your attack speed up to a maximum of 25%. Now, this one is specifically good for characters that can move and basic attack, which there's not many of them in the game. So there are 2 classes in particular that I'll be going over in just a moment. Now, we're going to start off with the Barbarian, and I think that this set actually could get some very solid use out of the Barbarian, or the Barbarian rather can get solid use out of the set, due to their Frenzy primary attack. Increasing your attack speed, therefore increasing your primary attack damage, will also increase the amount of attacks that you're dealing in terms of damage. That's very, very solid combination. The 2-piece set. The 4-piece set's also quite solid. The only problem I see with the 4-piece set is, are you going to be taking advantage of the extra 25% attack speed? Because oftentimes you'll combo with basic whirlwind, or swap between those two. So I'm just not quite sure. However, if you run Wrath of the Berserker, I believe, you're going to get extra crit chance, or perhaps extra attack speed too. So you can stack all of this together. I think this set turns out to be an A-tier set for the Barbarian. You could even argue that it's an S-tier set for the Barbarian, but very, very overall solid set for the Barbarian. Next up is the Crusader, and I think this is another one that can take unique use out of this. I still don't think it's quite as good as some of the other sets out there, but due to the fact that you're increasing your primary attack damage, you really get use out of this when you're on your horse, because you can move and attack on your horse, as well as you can use your other abilities before you jump on your horse and then be primary attacking, and your horse attack is faster. So you can get a lot of use out of the 4-piece set effect and the 2-piece set effect. So I would say that this set is probably at an A tier for the Crusader, but I think that it's hard to get full use out of the primary attack, increasing your attack speed, and getting full use of the attack speed in any melee class, except maybe the Monk, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But I would put this at an A tier for the Crusader. Next up is going to be the Demon Hunter, and the Demon Hunter is going to be an absolute S tier set. In the Demon Hunter, you're going to be basic attacking everywhere you go. You're going to be moving and basic attacking. You're going to be constantly charging this up and constantly being able to use full effect of the 4 and 2-piece set. Now, I think that you really shouldn't even go with any other set. In general, I think this is going to give you the most value. There's another set that I think is very, very interesting with the Demon Hunter, but we're going to go over that in just a moment. This 4-piece set, though, is going to be so much value and definitely should be something that you're looking out for as the Demon Hunter. Next up is going to be the Monk, and the Monk is going to get a lot of use out of this set. And I think for the main reason that you can teleport with your basic, which means you get a lot of uptime despite being a melee class out of this set. You're going to be able to teleport. Your teleports are going to be faster if your primary attacks are faster. I get a lot of use out of Elderus being able to teleport really quickly. And also, you're going to be able to stick on your target very often due to the fact that you can primary attack so often, and so you're going to get a lot of value out of this set. I think this set probably is an S tier for me, and this might be a little surprising, but I'm going to put it in an S tier just because I think there's a lot of primary attacking that's going on with the Monk, despite no buffs to it necessarily, but you're also going to get value out of it from your Mystic allies and things like that. So I think this set is probably an S tier for the Monk. Let me know if you disagree in the comments down below. That one is a little tricky, although I do like the fact that it increases your teleport times per minute. Next up is going to be the Necromancer, and this one I'm going to say is probably at a D tier for the Necromancer. The problem is you can primary attack a lot as the Necromancer and get a lot of value out of this. The thing is, when you start to compare it to the other sets, I don't think that there's a lot of value, but you could get a lot of use out of this one. I guess it's probably not as bad as I make it out to be. Maybe it's like a B tier here for the Necromancer. I just don't like this set when I know that there's another set that's way better than this for the Necro. So I'm going to put this at a B tier just because I know that there's a better set out there that we're going to get to in just a moment. Then we have the Wizard, and the Wizard here, I believe this set's probably at a B or an A tier for the Wizard. And the simple fact of the matter is you're going to be primary attacking a lot in any class, so you can always get value out of this set. So I think a D tier for the Necromancer, what I initially said, is probably a little unfair, but because you're going to be able to primary attack all the time on any class, specifically the ranged classes, you can get a lot of use out of this set, despite not being able to move and hit. That being said, I think the Grace set is usually going to be the better one to go with, and I think that although you can get value out of this set, you're going to want to prioritize that Grace set over farming this one. So I'm going to put this one at a A tier because I think you can get a lot of value out of it, but it's going to be worse than the Grace set in my opinion. Next up, we have the Vithu's Urges set, and this set is, in my opinion, the most frustrating set in the game, and I'll go and get to that in just a moment. This one's quite good, though. It increases the duration of all your beneficial effects on you or your party members by 30%, also increasing the target's attack speed by 30% for 3 seconds each time you use a skill to grant a beneficial effect to yourself or a party member. Now, keep in mind that this works with self-buffing, so you're going to extend that self-buff as well as getting the increased attack speed. So although I said that the Shaal'baas set is very, very excellent and 4-piece for the Demon Hunter, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, this is an absolutely amazing set for those classes as well, and it can definitely replace the Shaal'baas set in some circumstances. So right here, what I would suggest for the Barbarian is absolutely run a 2-piece. You could even run a 4-piece set of this. I like the Grace 2-piece plus the Vithu's 2-piece. And the reason for this is your group sprint, your group demoralize, damage buff, and any other group skill that you want to run will also increase the duration as well as increase the attack speed for yourself and your party members. Your Undying Rage will also be increased and give you attack speed bonus here. So it'll be absolutely amazing for the Barbarian in so many different circumstances, and you can absolutely get value out of this in so many places. Next up is the Crusader. I guess I didn't give a rating for the Barbarian. I think this is an S 2-piece set and a S 4-piece set as well, depending on what build you want to run. The Crusader here, I'm going to put this set at an B tier, and a lot of people might be surprised. I have tested the Vithu's Urges with the banner, as well as one of the other fellow content creators on Aftershock, and we have not observed a single second in duration increase on the banner. That being said, this set really only increases your Conjuration of Light duration or any other personal beneficial effects. Problem is, Banner is going to be one of your most important skills that you want to buff, and if it's not buffing Banner, then there's no reason to run this set, in my opinion, generally. That being said, you still will get value out of the increasing the attack speed of the target for 3 seconds, so you could get use out of the 2-piece and 4-piece, but I would put this as a B tier for the Crusader, which is really unfortunate because if it did work with Banner, this would be an absolute S++ tier set, 2 and 4-piece, way more so than the Grace set. Next up, we have Demon Hunter, and I highly recommend that you take a look at the 2 and 4-piece set. The thing with the Shaal'baas set is it's going to increase your primary attack damage by 15%, which I think is more valuable than the attack speed increase. So I think that using a 2-piece Vithu's, 2-piece Shaal'baas is really, really good because it will increase your Vengeance duration when you apply it. That is absolutely absurd. Very, very good. Although I could see the 4-piece set being more valuable later on in more consistent value out of that 4-piece Shaal'baas set. But I'm going to put this in an S tier 2-piece. The 4-piece is also quite solid, but I believe the 4-piece Shaal'baas is going to be better than the 4-piece Vithu's Urges, simply for the fact that you're going to be able to keep the 25% attack speed up longer rather than a 3-second duration for this Vithu's Urges 4-piece set. So I'm going to put that 2-piece in S tier and the 4-piece in A tier for the Demon Hunter. Next up, we have the Monk. And the Monk, I'm going to put this one at an A tier because you can extend a few of the buffs when you have Inner Sanctuary, the damage increase, things like that. It's going to give you a lot of value. You could also increase the damage and survivability of your summons and Mystic allies when you're running Inner Sanctuary. So extending that duration is going to give you a lot of beneficial damage and things like that. So I would put this at an A tier for the Monk. The 4-piece set is going to be okay, but because you only have one really, really solid buff that I would recommend running a lot, I would say that the 4-piece set's probably a little bit lower than the A tier in the Monk situation. Next up, we have the Necromancer. And the Necromancer, I really, really like Vithu's Urges, simply for the fact of PvP, as well as some of the other modifications you can give to Bone Armor. Bone Armor's modifications and extending the CC immunity, extending all that good stuff on the Bone Armor is going to be so massive for your party members. The duration of CC immunity is what causes so many problems in PvP. And so I'm going to put the 2-piece at an absolute S tier. I'm going to put the 4-piece at a B tier. I think that running a 2-piece set can give you so much value in some certain game modes more than some other sets. I think I love this set in combination with Bone Armor. Next up is going to be the Wizard. And the Wizard, I'm going to put this set at a C tier because although you can have quite a few beneficial effects that you can apply to your character, at least self-buffing, you're not going to get any value from your party. So it's going to be purely self-buff. And overall, I just would much rather run a 4-piece Grace set over the 2-piece Vithus. You could run the 4-piece Vithus, but again, if you're going to run a 4-piece Vithus, then I'd rather run a 4-piece Grace. It's going to give you more damage generally, because you're not going to be able to stand there and basic a lot of the time. It's going to require you to kite or move back and basic, or move along and basic, which means you're not going to get full value out of the 4-piece in terms of the attack speed by 30%. So this one is going to be a C tier for me in the wizard category. And this one's going to be very, very focused on not taking damage, which is very awkward for those melee classes. So let's jump into the bonuses here. The 2-piece set effect is going to give you 15% increased movement speed, while also deactivating for 3 seconds if you take damage. And then it also will increase your damage done by 20% while 1,000 Winds is active. So first off, let's just talk about this in terms of melee classes. I would put all of the melee classes at a D tier for this set. I really think of this in terms of like Elder Rift running, PvP, dungeon running, things like that. You're never going to have this active for 3 seconds. You're going to always deactivate this for 3 seconds every single time you walk into a group, because you just have to walk through people in order for you to get value, or even to hit them, which makes it very difficult to get consistent value out of this. And so I'm going to put all the classes that are melee in D tier, because you're very little going to get value out of this set consistently. However, for the ranged classes, the Demon Hunter, I would actually put this set at an A tier for the Demon Hunter, maybe even S tier, but it's competing with Shaal'baas and Vithu's 2-piece, which is hard to do. But 15% movement speed consistently, and if you're good about it and monitoring it, you could probably not take damage at a decent pace. And then you're going to just increase your damage dealt by 20% if you have the 4-piece set. So I actually really like this for the Demon Hunter. The Necromancer, it's going to be quite solid. The only problem is increasing your movement speed is very good, and increasing your damage dealt by 20% is very good. The only thing is, I don't think you're going to get as much value from this set as the Demon Hunter, because you're not as long range. So I'm going to put this set as a B tier for the Necromancer, but overall you can get more value than the melee classes for sure. And the last one is the Wizard. The Wizard's going to get more value than the Necromancer as well, because of its long range. The only thing is, you're not going to get advantage out of this movement speed increase as much because of the channeling effects and the not ability to move when you're basicing and things like that. So I'm going to put this set in a B tier as well, because although you're able to get value, not as much as the Demon Hunter, just the same as the Necromancer. So I'm going to put that in the B tier. And this set screams PvP to me, because you're not going to be able to CC bosses in PvE. So this is purely a PvP set in my eyes. It's going to increase the duration of your abilities that cause loss of control by 30% at a 2-piece, and it increases all damage done from all sources by 15% to enemies suffering under your loss of control effects. So this set is very interesting for PvP. Now, when we're talking about loss of control, I think that some things matter and some things don't when they probably should. Things like fear, I've heard, doesn't work in terms of activating this set, which is really unfortunate, and I would really consider that a loss of control. That being said, let's talk about the Barbarian here. Barbarian doesn't have a crazy amount of CC, but it does have the Gathering. The only unfortunate part about that is I don't think the Gathering counts for this. I've heard that it doesn't count for the Chip of the Stone Flesh, which makes it very awkward, and I would say that if that's the case, this set is maybe at an F tier for me, because of how little amount of things you can do to proc it. And so if that's the case, I'll put it at F tier. If the Gathering could proc this bonus damage, I would put this at a C tier, because you'll be able to increase your damage dealt, but I don't think it increases the duration because it's just a pull in. So it's not like you could increase that duration. You do have that one stun, but are you going to land it? Maybe. Or are you going to bring it in PvP? Maybe. I'm not quite sure on that one. But I think this set is overall not super great on the Barbarian. The Crusader, on the other hand, I think that you can get a lot of value out of this set simply because there's a lot of skills in the Crusader's kit that could freeze, like Sacred Chains, or stun, like the wall charge, the shield charge. So I'm going to put this set at a 2-piece, definitely at an A tier. This one's specifically for PvP. Again, so increasing the duration of your abilities might even be an S tier of CC if you're talking about PvP, but I'll put it at an A tier overall. The 4-piece set, it's not going to be a huge amount of times that you're going to be stunning them, so you're not going to get a crazy amount of value out of this. So I'm going to say the 2-piece is at an A tier, and the 4-piece is probably at a C tier for me for the Crusader. Next up is going to be the Demon Hunter. This is an F tier. You're not going to have a whole lot of skills that I don't think any skill besides maybe the wolves would cause loss of control. And that means that you're not going to get the 4-set proc, and you're not even going to get super much ton of value from the 2-piece set. It's an F tier for me for the Demon Hunter. Pretty simplistic there. Next up is the Necromancer, and this is one of those classes where I think Necromancer can get a lot of value out of this because of their knockups and things like that, and then the stuns and such that they can offer afterwards. So I'm going to put this at an A tier for the Necro. Maybe an S tier. Again, if this was a PvP only list, then I would say that the S tier is probably fitting for the Feasting Barons 2-piece. I don't like the 4-piece set, if I'm being honest, just overall, because it's so conditional and the damage increase is oftentimes just going to be lower than some of the other sets already existing. So overall, S tier for the S, the 2-piece, and the 4-piece is much lower than that for the Necro. And then the next one is Monk. Monk, I'm going to put probably at an A tier with this set. They do have a few skills that can CC quite well. Only problem is a lot of these skills are like knockups and lifting and pushing. And so I don't know how much it's going to affect those skills in terms of increasing the duration. I believe it's hard to increase that duration. That being said, I'm going to put it in an A tier because I believe that it is going to give you some serious value in PvP only. Last up, we have the Wizard, and this one is very interesting because if the Gathering does not work to pull people in, I'm not sure the Black Hole does, but if the Black Hole does work with this, this is an absolute S tier for me in PvP, and in overall probably an A tier, because the Black Hole is absolutely absurd. If you could extend that duration, it's going to be so massive, and the 4-piece set's already even probably good enough if you're Black Holing a lot in PvP. So I'm going to put it at an A tier for the Wizard in PvE and an S tier for the Wizard in PvP. And the last set is the Shepherd's Call to Wolves. Now, this set is, in my opinion, an exclusive Necromancer set. So for me, I would put this set very simply at a very low bottom of the list for a lot of classes. Your summons are going to deal 15% damage for a 2-piece, and for a 4-piece, you're going to increase your critical hit chance increase by 3% for each of your summons, up to a maximum of 18%. Now, for the Barbarian, I'm going to put it as a D tier. You have one summon that you could summon, and it's going to deal 15% more damage and do 3% extra crit rate. I don't think that's as good as some of the other sets. The Crusader, I'm also going to put it at a D tier. You have one summon. You don't often use that skill. You could even argue it's an F tier for the Crusader. The Demon Hunter, I'm going to put it as an F tier as well. Just going to not do much for you. For the Monk, I'm actually going to put it at a B tier because I believe you could actually get a little bit of value out of this. Maybe even A tier from your Mystic allies. So that does become a little interesting, as well as if you combo it with your Echoing Shade. I want to shout out Deadwood Jedi again here for his Shadow Clone build, where you have Echoing Shade, this set, as well as the Mystic allies. It's actually quite interesting and could get some value there. So maybe even A tier there. Then the Necromancer, S tier. You're going to get full value from the 4-piece set if you can make it work. Only if you're running a summon build. If you're not running a summon build, this set is literally useless. But oftentimes PvE summon builds are very, very solid unless you get to the very difficult PvE content. So S tier for the Necro. And lastly, the Wizard. I'm going to put it as an F tier as well. It's just, you're not going to be able to get full value from the 4-piece, and you're not really going to have summons to deal 15% more damage. So it's not really a good set for any class but the Necro and maybe the Monk if you decide to go that route. So there you have it. There's all the sets in the game and how I would rate for each class. Some of the, I guess you could say, stipulations between each of the set and what you need to make it good. Hopefully we'll get to the later Paragon levels and Hell Force soon, so we can start talking about 6-piece set effects, especially considering like this summon effect for 6-piece. Your summons enter a frenzy set for 12 seconds each time one of them critically hits. This is insane, absolutely massive for the Necromancer. So definitely excited to see those 6-piece set effects take effect when we get to those later stages. That being said, let me know in the comments down below if you have a different perspective than I do for any of these sets, for any of the classes, and I will see you for the next one.